Welcome back once again, and I say once again because to Grim Captivation. I only say again because this is our third trying to record this. It is kind of spooky that the episode is going to be about pretty much the stages of demonic possession, and this is the third time that we've tried, where the first time there was a kitty interruption. Pretty much my cat came over and walked on the keyboards and pretty much deleted the episode. And then the second time my camera went out just all of a sudden, so it just froze. And so we're just hoping that this one works. I hope so, because it's been annoying to restart everything. But welcome back. And I think I don't want to make sure everything's here and working, so I'm just going to go right into the episode, I feel like. With demonic possession itself, for me, I just wanted to highlight that it does go back into the the New Testament of the Bible. And the first one that I kind of wanted to highlight was in Mark chapter 5, and pretty much goes like this. So, when he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him. He lived among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him anymore, not even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken into pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, day and night, he was screaming among the tombs and in the tombs, and cutting himself with stones. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him, and shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do you have with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God, do not torment me." For he had already been saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And he was asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of this region. Now there was a large herd of pigs feeding nearby on the mountain, and the demons begged him, saying, "Send us into the pigs so that we may enter them." Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. The herdsmen ran away and reported it in the city and in the countryside, and the people came to see what it was that had happened. And then they came to Jesus and saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had previously had the legion, and they became frightened. So, goes back many years that exorcising demons was still a thing back then. So, very scary stuff, I feel like. Now, there are many variations of stories of demonic possession and aggression. It's just kind of hard to keep up with everything. You know, is demonic possession real, or is it just a hoax? There's a lot of debate whether demonic possession is real or believable, but that's kind of it. Is it believable or not? What you believe depends on your stance of possessions and everything that goes with it. In the more modern times, movies have amplified what goes on during demonic possession and exorcisms. Examples like The Exorcist from 1973 all the way up to the first of the Conjuring movies in 2013 show some of those situations of demonic possession and the stages that the victim goes through. There is, of course, the famous situation of "The Devil Made Me Do It," highlighted in the third Conjuring movie to add an extra note to it, where pretty much the cause of demonic possession was open to the public and into the courts. But kind of coming back to the first Conjuring movie, there's a quote. I think it's at the end of the movie, actually, now that I think about it. And it's by demonologist Ed Warren. And he's, thousands, if not millions, of people have heard of him. And one of the quotes that sticks out to me is this: "Diabolical forces are formidable. These forces are eternal and they exist today. The fairy tale is true. The devil exists, God exists. And for us as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow." And I think that's very true. So, After all, there are two sides of our internal battles, good versus evil, personally. Coming from a Christian background, Satan's demonic forces are constantly trying to lure us to the easier route, the path that is broad and wide, but it leads to destruction. Sometimes these easy ways lead us to succumb much easier to our intrusive thoughts, sensing this relief, but just momentarily. The devil's very cunning in his ways to lure us to the dark side. It's enticing and it's reachable. Now, I could go on for another episode about this, but we're kind of here to talk more about the, the demonic possessions and the stages and all that stuff. So, if you believe in it, that's great, and if not, you're probably here for morbid curiosity of the dark and the mysteriously macabre. So, before getting into exorcisms, we're going to dive into the details of demonic possessions, obviously, for this episode. And demonic possession is definitely dangerous, to say the least. Invoking evil spirits into somebody's life, even if it's by accident or a fault from somebody close to them. But invoking a spiritual figure doesn't always mean that it's bad. So, for instance, there's a protection prayer that goes, Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. So,
Amen.
And I don't go into too many prayers for the actual episodes, but I felt it kind of necessary for some protection while talking about evil spirits and demonic forces. So, going first into the stages of demonic possession, there are actually 4 that I wanted to kind of highlight. And although many people kind of get sick and tired about hearing about the Warrens and all that, they do have a lot of great quotes and explanations for the paranormal. Ed gives a nice brief summary of what the demonic possession stages are, and then I'll go into a little bit more explanations or kind of examples of them. Ed's quote comes from the book Satan's Harvest, and it says, "First comes encroachment, where a negative spirit is given an opening to a human being, either through voluntary means such as a satanic ritual, or through involuntary means such as a curse or the performance of an unholy act. The second stage is infestation, when the demons first haunt a person's house. The third stage is oppression, when the spirits begin to try to take over the person living in the house. And the final stage, after the actual demonic possession, is death." So, for me, that kind of makes sense, that demonic possession and death is kind of paired together, because it's kind of what it is. You're fighting first your own soul or somebody else's soul, and it's literally just 50-50 at that point. You win or you lose. So yeah, the first stage, encroachment, or what I commonly kind of hear is this infestation stage, pretty much. This first stage, the way that I would like to put it is the infestation stage, and this is sort of almost like poltergeist activities, such as moving objects around, hearing disembodied footsteps or whispers, and just overall messing with people's heads, thinking you heard something down the hall here or a knock on the wall there, things like that. I think of it sort of as a trickery, trying to find out who is the most vulnerable, or perhaps who is the greatest threat, kind of pairing between people of the household. Demonic forces try to prey on the weaker souls, the easier targets to claim. I feel like this infestation stage might be the starting key element to a demonic possession. And I say might because there would be a few other factors. So for instance, if somebody pulled out a Ouija board and reached out to spirits that way, well, then that would be the first step, things like that. But when people start hearing voices or having objects moved around, I think that would be a good sign of, first paranormal presences. So the second stage, at least for me, is the oppression stage. This is when the person starts to get worn down, either by illnesses or nightmares or just very bad mental spots. Obviously, by this time, the demonic entity is there to stay and has chosen its target. Like I mentioned, some signs could be frequent illnesses, regular nightmares, sleep disturbances, sometimes even major depression, or a high rise in anxiety. Sometimes the oppression stage causes discord in relationships, whether it's a close couple or like financial problems. Something bad happens between family or a couple or something like that. And when I had mentioned earlier, I think like the weaker the target gets, the easier it is for the possession, and especially during this oppression stage where they're pretty much just eating away at them. So it is a dangerous stage. So the third one is called the obsession stage. So normally by this time the victim is both physically and mentally weak. Their sicknesses continue raging on, causing their mental strength to diminish. The anxiety and the depression grows to a dangerous rate, and the entity is securing itself into the victim's body and mind, so to speak. All they can really think about is negativity. The possessor fills the victim's mind with weakness, and whenever this stage is happening, the peril of fighting for somebody's soul is bound to happen very soon after, I feel like. So. And the last stage, of course, as most people are familiar with, is the possession stage. So this is when the demonic entity has some control over somebody's body and mind. And I say that they have some control and not complete control, like throughout the whole entire day. There's a lot of like horror movies that depict possessions really well, at least in my opinion. But possession isn't necessarily like a full control all the time, I should say all the time. But when the demonic entity is in its temporary control, it can cause some serious damage, I feel like. Some of the effects of possession include speaking in other languages that the victim doesn't know, nearly superhuman strength, the aversion to holy objects like a crucifix, a Bible, or holy water, and at times the knowledge of unknown events that the victim would have no clue of. There's a slight possibility that there would be like facial changes throughout the possession, but personally I think like the changes would be because of a victim's like physical and mental weakness, kind of like dragging throughout the weeks and months of like that mental torture. So I feel like if there is any like facial changes, it's just because the demonic entity has been eating away at them for days, weeks, months, however long. So. But yeah, and that's kind of like all I had for like the stages of demonic possession, of like this is what happens like in order and whatnot. And I knew it was going to be a shorter episode, but it's kind of like highlighted like, yep, these are the 4, and now we go into exorcisms. So basically, how do you kind of deal with it, I suppose. But yeah, so we'll be doing a part 2 where we discuss the layers and stages of exorcisms. And pretty much overall, demonic possession is a dangerous thing. Like I said, having somebody's body and mind being taken over, even momentarily, and fighting for somebody's soul.
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe it, I feel like the concept itself is very ominous and dark. So, but yeah, what do you think about the stages of demonic possession? Do you think that all makes sense? Like happens in a row?
Oh yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, I find it funny how they even have stages of how they themselves, I guess, as people have, been through possessions, or, I find it crazy how there's been like a common, what's the word?
Factor?
I guess, of like how each person goes through the same thing and they slowly figure it out why, or how it happened, or what it started with, and that's pretty terrifying.
It's scary.
No, thank you.
It's scary stuff.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and I think like the whole thing with stages is that it's like the whole thing of like the demonic entity picking and choosing somebody, and it only happens over time, because you also, as like a demonic entity, I don't think they would want to all of a sudden just rush into something, because then like whoever's being possessed is like immediately knows what's going on. So I feel like the stages is like this parasite that just grows and spreads.
Yeah, slowly in time.
Yeah. So I think for the most part, maybe that's why they have stages. I don't know. No one knows how demons work. No one really is a demon, so. There's bad people, there's evil people, but I don't think they're like actual demons. It's all like, who knows? Because the thing is,
this
with
world nowadays.
Yeah. Because the whole thing with this show is like, yeah, we don't really know what's in the afterlife, you know.
Yeah.
Like, for sure, like, this is, you know, it's a mystery, so. But yeah, so those were the stages of demonic possession. Pretty soon we'll be covering the exorcisms, kind of like steps and techniques of exorcisms. Kind of go into that. And yeah, anything else you want to add?
I actually do know someone that went through a possession.
Possession?
Yeah, who had an exorcism. I don't know the full story, so I can't really say. But it's actually a family member in Mexico who went through that, and my whole family, they were terrified. Like, they were terrified. They didn't know what to do. They were panicking, and they noticed slowly in time that the person was changing their ways, and like in a negative way, and they were being more abusive and like with like their words and their physical actions, of course.
Their personality flipped.
Yeah. Oh yeah, big flip. And then they were like, yeah, something's wrong, and yeah, they had to call, a priest, and I don't know the full story. I just know little parts of what my mom was telling me, but yeah, I think it was a female cousin, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but like they started talking like in like different languages. Like, they were so surprised because over there they don't really have the like for my family, they didn't have the funds to go to school, so they never really learned any other languages. So they were shocked when they were talking different languages in a different voice. So they were pretty spooked. Yeah, when they called my mom, like after it all happened, my mom was like, she was like, what the fuck?
So yeah, like that actual,
was yeah, like it had happened, and like they had to call their their town's priest, and they called people because it was just getting to a point where they were attacking.
Like
people,
physically.
physically attacking the family. So, yeah, if I knew the whole story, I would tell the whole story from A to Z. But I don't know the whole story. I just know parts of it. But yeah, when mom told me this, I was like, oh my gosh! And I know who they're talking. Like I know that I know them in person. Like I met them. I'm just like, that is terrifying. So whenever
do they have memories of that?
Yeah. So
like
whenever
the actual, like, victim.
Yeah, the actual victim, So whenever we ever go visit, I might have a good talk with them about it. If they want to talk about it, they're open to talk about it. But they've been open to talk about it because, it affected the whole family, so.
Hey, it would be a good segment for the show.
Right? Yeah, I'll ask my mom for the full story and hopefully give an update or something.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's still scary, though.
Yeah, that was
especially
terrifying.
When it's, like, personal like that and close. It's kind of like, sometimes it's like, it's hard to believe.
Yeah.
But then, like, when it actually happens, then it's just like, I think that gives everybody a shock.
Yeah. And then what's sad is, like, her kids were present when everything was happening.
Oh.
Like,
so they're
the main
scarred
thing.
For life, then.
Oh yeah. But they're strong kids. Like, they're strong mentally, and they're really good kids. But yeah.
Yeah, so let us know in the comments if you believe in demonic possession and exorcisms and all that stuff, the spiritual warfare, all that things. Let us know, and I guess we'll just see you guys in the next episode. And stay spooked, because that's all I got for the closing statement. I don't have anything else. Boom.